So this is one of the most important components, I think, for managing a family office effectively. The most successful family offices I know manage their wealth with this mindset, and they don't typically just say, okay, after 40 years of building my wealth, I'm just going to trust UBS or the wealth advisor down the street and just dump all my assets with them. And then I'll just play golf, or I'll just start my one new business idea. It's not typically what they do. They're typically investing directly into real estate, maybe directly through some real estate independent sponsors, maybe into some private companies. Then they as well have one or two or three wealth advisors they split up their wealth with, or just one that they really trust. But most importantly, they split it into three types of deals. So this first circle at the top is diversified market exposure. That's the typical customary wealth management function of getting you diversification and exposure to many types of assets to protect you, so you can track the markets and hopefully not lose as much as the markets would if you just went into a single index fund. So the level of outsourcing there is very high. You might tell them you love Costco stock, otherwise just let them do their job, or tell them what industries you like, et cetera. But you don't get too involved besides choosing the right wealth advisor. The second circle down is on conservative cash flowing real estate. Maybe 10 or 20% of this is real estate development, but typically it's apartment buildings, self-storage, mobile home parks, senior care, like Brandon was talking about, et cetera. In this area, you might choose what niche, like maybe you really like multifamily and self-storage, for example, and you might choose what geographies. Maybe you really believe that like Arizona, Texas, Florida are going to dominate the migration of people. So you only want to invest in those three areas and those three food groups. But you maybe don't want to go and walk the roof of self-storage properties and manage them and go and buy the deals yourself or source the deals yourself and negotiate those deals. So this is a mid-level of outsourcing. You're deciding the asset class, the food group of real estate. You're deciding the geography or the cities, maybe even deciding deal by deal which deals you like and don't like, but you're not managing the deal or working the portfolio yourself unless you made your money in real estate. The third area here is where you made your money or the niche industry that you want to focus on. This is the opposite of when I talk about diversification. And that red circle there, if someone tries to invest directly into 15 different industries, they're not going to know what they're doing. Even really successful $3 and $5 billion net worth families might form themselves like a private equity fund almost. But at most, I've seen three sleeves that has been successful. And they'll say, okay, we do real estate internally, and we invest in automotive, and we invest in this other niche over here. It's typically related to one of those two other niches. And that's if they're managing $3 to $5 billion. They're not trying to do this in 15 different areas. So the point here, your level of outsourcing is very low. You might use a broker to help you find a deal, but you know how to negotiate the deal, run the deal, you can see it through, you can operate the deal. It takes the most amount of your time. It might have the most amount of risk perceived by others. And it's the least numerous in the portfolio. This is the most numerous. There might be 400 investments in your portfolio managed by your wealth advisor, but you just made one decision to hire the best wealth advisor you could find, and you're really removed from it. This is in the middle. You have people helping you execute on what are essentially direct investments, but done through a sponsor or a fund, counterparties that you trust, mid-level outsourcing. And here it's what you're doing yourself internally. And sometimes people get this mixed up. And they hire one person just to run their whole family office, which could be good to have someone oversee the three channels. But the same brain is going to be excellent at doing this, is not typically excellent at running your industry's operating business, and not typically excellent at helping select the direct investments and run that program. There's very few multifamily offices really equipped to do both of these areas. A few do. So it's just important to think it over in this way, because you might want to hold on to one piece of this yourself, or the client you're working with might be used to approaching things a certain way. And they might say, oh no, you run a fund? Oh, we don't want to invest in funds. We want control over everything. But they really don't want control over everything. It's really not practical to have control over everything. And this is why. When you look at this, when someone says they want control over everything, they're saying in all three of these columns, they want to do all six of these horizontal line items. But the reality is nobody says yes to all those things. And so they do want help. And if you are excellent at sourcing investments in your area, but they say, oh no, I want control over everything, then you could say, okay, well, we only focus on this niche and we see 1,000 deals a year. Here are the two deals we have under LOI now. If we compare that to the best deals you're able to source doing everything, I would think they would compete very handily with what you're doing now. And if our only source of value to you is sourcing the deal, which is horizontal line item number 3 there, then how about we just do a co-investment around this deal and we get a little bit of equity in the deal for sourcing it, and you just take it down the road. and you can have a right of first refusal, or every other deal, or deals with a certain buy box that fits what you're looking for. We just get credit for sourcing it, and then you can control everything else if you really do want to do all the other 5 boxes here. But as you build that relationship, then you can kind of see what they really want control of and what they don't. And so the 3 columns, which we had here, these line up with these 3 areas here, is diversified, which is like a wealth advisory function, cash flowing real estate, maybe 10 or 20% real estate development that will cash flow, and then your operating business column. And as you get to know someone, they're likely not going to want to fill out a chart for you, but you use this in conversation or use this with your own family office to say, what are we skilled at? What do we want to do internally versus what do we want to outsource? And so in my case, I would want to outsource the wealth advisory function part, or at least many components of that. For cash flowing real estate, the responsibility to oversee it, I would run the strategies. I would just pick the strategies, but I would rely upon a partner to come up with the actual strategies of executing them within a real estate property, meaning that I'm not the one who's going to build out the extra self-storage units if we acquire a property that has expansion capabilities on it, or extra acreage for expansion. Sourcing the deals would rely upon brokers or the sponsor again to source the deals and screen them. They would also rely upon them for most of the due diligence, because my due diligence is done on the partner. And then the management of the deal, I'd rely upon the partner. I'm not going to manage the property month to month. And then the operating business column, we do almost everything ourselves, but we might need help sourcing. If we're looking to acquire a business, might use a broker who specializes in our field to help us with sourcing a deal. And maybe they add extra value with a little bit of strategy or something like that.